All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CO channel. This is John the Bomb. Building others means business. And I keep on saying that, but you know what? When you bring on a guest like this, these are the types of people that are the people behind the people, right? They're CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs. But, like every great athlete, someone needs someone to be coaching them, to be moving them, to be steering them, to be pushing them. I'll selfishly say in my chapter number 2 of Align, you get to be a mentor or a mentee based on the experience that you've developed. And it's so cool to have this lady on. Her name is Stacey Hylen. She's a 2016 International Coach of the Year. She's certified, very importantly, AI consultant. She's coming out with a book called The Hidden Profit System. And guess what? She's been featured on CNN, Fox Business Entrepreneur magazine, and more. Her upcoming book, Hidden Profits, More Clients and Cash, is already stirring interest, and her LinkedIn network is 14,000 connections. You don't just connect with people on LinkedIn just willy nilly like some other social medias. She is sought after and connected with. So, Stacey Hylen, thanks so much for coming on the Go for CO channel. How are you?
Oh, I'm awesome, John. I love how you did your bomb. Like I actually did that with my last name because it's such a weird Swedish spelling. So it's
Yeah.
help you leverage everything now.
Oh, wow. I love acronyms. I think it's such
Yeah,
a cool way to kind of stick in someone's mind.
yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. Interesting. Well, we love to start off in the Go for CO channel, with an opportunity to kind of learn how did you even think of getting into the consulting, coaching business? What were some of the background things that you had? Was it only school to business or business to business? How did that work? So tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about that
it's
story.
funny because I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family and I read my first sales book in third grade.
Oh, wow.
And I started selling in third grade. I was doing door to door, selling to my neighbors. I was buying stationery and selling it, buying it wholesale, selling it at retail, to travel because I wanted to travel. And then by fifth grade, I progressed to selling business to business. And it was just something that was in my blood. So I went into sales, after school. And in my last selling job, I was doing a very consultative selling style because I really believe in that. And we were selling a very high ticket piece of equipment. And in this consultative sales style, I was helping the business owners actually grow their business. So I was saying, like, okay, here's an area that you can increase your revenue. Here's an area. And so one of my clients at that point increased her sales 200% in 1 year. So when that happened, I was like, you know what? I was really enjoying that much more than, the sales, doing the sales and constantly being on the road. And coincided with my dad being diagnosed with cancer and he died very suddenly, like within 2 months. And at that point, it really made me step back and say, okay, what do I want? And when my dad passed away, he had a lot of regrets because even though he was really successful, he didn't feel as successful at home. And he had missed a lot of those important moments. And so that really inspired my mission to give entrepreneurs back to their families. So, whatever growth strategies we're doing in a business is not just about growth for growth's sake. It's really like designing the lifestyle of like, how do you want to live your life? What impact do you want to have? How do you want to interact with your family? What do you want to do with your life and grow your business at the same time? So, that's how I got started.
Well, it's inspiring, right? I mean, sometimes, unfortunately, things have to happen in your life, crossroads or events, things that kind of propel you into certain directions. But the discovery that you had, just even being inside the company and helping in different ways, I was affectionately call you an entrepreneur at that point. You were thinking like a business owner, finding ways to help and add value, which is a big deal. Go for CO community. You take a look at the way that Stacey just described that. If you're working a job and watching this channel and this interview, that is a great way for you to start, your entrepreneurial journey, be the entrepreneur in the company. So, all right, well, take us through, obviously, you have this tragedy that happens with your dad, you get inspired to kind of, make him, someone that will be remembered through your work. What are some of the first steps that you shared, when you started looking at becoming a consultant, and were you thinking about certain industries that you really were attracted to? What was some of the ways that you got that thing started?
Well, I actually went to coaching school. So there's a thing called Coach U, which is a coaching school of learning coaching tools. But I think what separates me from a lot of coaches is it's not just about like having coaching skills and asking good questions. I'm more of what I call a consultant, that I'm actually going to tell you what works instead of saying,
Consultant.
well, John, what do you think you should do? Instead,
Yeah.
I'm going to say, well, John, based on this, and this is, what I would suggest. And so I did do a lot of training. I studied with some of the greats, Russell Brunson, Jay Abraham. I worked with Chet Holmes and I worked with Tony Robbins, became vice president of consulting with their business mastery brand. And that was also when that opportunity came to me. I had little baby at home. I was going to networking meetings, and my husband and I were changing the baby in the parking lot. He would drop I would go to the networking meeting and he would give me the baby and then I would go home. And at that point somebody introduced me to Chet Holmes, the author of The Ultimate Sales Machine and Tony Robbins' partner in business mastery. And I was like, when I met him, I said this would be a really good opportunity to learn from a master. Like he coached and consulted with all these Fortune 500 companies. He was a master. So I jumped on that opportunity, as well as all of those paid opportunities that I did to invest in my learning. I said, let's mentor. I was the number two person that he brought in. Actually, his daughter Amanda, who's carrying on his legacy, wrote the foreword for my new book.
Oh, wow. Really,
So
really
it's a
cool. What
big
a
circle,
connection.
full circle moment. Yeah.
Well, and sometimes it's just about the destiny that you had, right? Obviously the things that happened, but also the things that you proactively did, and all of a sudden you put that energy out there, and look, you introduced yourself really in a way to Chet, and got that going. So neat. So you got some education, you really invested in yourself. What were some of the first ways that you attracted some clients?
Yeah, I did a lot of networking at the beginning, and that was a slog, and I think, the things that I learned from that is you need to be in the right rooms, right? Because if you're in a networking meeting with people that have no business or no clients, it's not the right room. So from
Mm.
there, then I really started doing more speaking and, going to events and being the person that people at the event were coming to see. And that really shifted everything. And then the other thing was referral relationships, like setting up the referral relationship with Chet, being able to, he had clients that were paying $30 to $50,000 a month for him. He's like, I need something for the people that are not paying $30 to $50,000 a month. So that was a great referral source as well, so that I had people coming from all over.
Awesome. So you were able to see kind of a niche below that mark, right, of where he was at. Obviously, his credibility and trust was pretty high,
Yeah.
and he was in that level. But then you saw the opportunity to work with that lower tier. I always say, it's in banking. There's called emerging middle markets, and then there's middle markets, right? So typically, 1 million when you hit seven figures, you go to 100 million. That's kind of an emerging middle market, and
Yeah.
middle market is 100 million to billions of dollars. So
Yeah.
really interesting that in that space of coaching and consulting, is that derived, scenario that you kind of carved out for yourself. So, so obviously you get a couple referrals. Was there, based on your education and the things that you learned from Chet and the organizations you were a part of, did you already have a specific framework that you were able to do discovery calls? How did that function start working?
Yeah, so I do discovery calls with people to find out where they need to go, right? And um, before I did StaceyHylen.com, I really my brand was Business Optimizer Coach. And the reason why is because there's something in my brain that I'm just able to like hone in on. It was funny because in my mastermind, I said something this week and they were like, that's why we pay you the big bucks, because it was just like I zero in, like I'm always looking for the areas of optimization for the people that I'm working with. And really, what I've developed is the add a zero without the hustle framework. Because again, like going back to my dad, I wanted to make sure that whatever I was doing with my clients is really rooted in like their lifestyle design. So we identify what their hidden profits are, we look at who their perfect clients are, and then we're really looking at creating that strategic positioning that makes them stand out in the market. So, um, for example, I had mentioned my logistics company that I work with, and you know, a lot of companies are struggling because they're in a commodity thing that they can't differentiate themselves, and they're just pricing and just the pennies on the dollar competition. And so really having a strong strategic positioning so that you have people that want to work with you and see you as the best choice in the market, see as you as the one in the market that they would want to work with.
So to me, I start thinking when you're describing that, talking about branding, talking about value that you're putting out there in the marketplace. And now with social media, you can do that for free, right? And put that out there and kind of share messaging and do podcasting and all that type of stuff. What are some of the things that you started to see where you were being able to, view, oh, okay, was it operations that you concentrated on? Was it a better marketing effort? Was it, they needed to create a better sales process or a group of salespeople?
Yeah, so I don't really focus on the branding. I really look at the strategic positioning. So before you can do the marketing, you need to know, what is my strategic positioning in the marketplace? What is it that my perfect client wants? And so
Mm.
I often say that it's a spiral, right? So when I start working with people, and I've had clients now that have been with me over 15 years, people that have been my mastermind for 8 years. So what happens is you start, looking at who your perfect client is, and it's here. And then we come back to it, and it just keeps getting elevated, and it also gets clearer and clearer. So we want to figure out, with the perfect clients, what are their needs? What are their wants? And then how can we position ourselves so that the person that we're trying to market to wants what we have? And so that's really crucial before you start doing the marketing, before you start, blabbing all over on social media, that you know what that message is that you're helping people with.
So in your current consulting, process, are you going through some sort of, 1 or 2 day process of that to identify that? Are you also attracting people that maybe are in the beginning stages, or do you like kind of midterm companies that are just struggling to get to the next level?
Yeah, I usually work with people. We usually start with a VIP day to really dig into their business. I get all of their marketing that they're using right now, their everything that they're doing, and we really dig in deep into the marketing and the messaging and the positioning. Um, I generally work with people that are like on the cusp of $1 million up to like 20 million, $30 million. That's the sweet spot that, like, usually the CEO is very involved. A lot of times the education is still in the CEO's brain. Like, there's nobody else that says it as well as he does or she does, right? And so now I'm working with them, working with their sales team, working with their marketing to help them really hone that in. And now with AI, it's really even increased it because, for example, the client that I mentioned that's been my client for 15 years, we know his positioning. We have been able, with his strategic positioning, to go, he competes against billion-dollar companies, $100 million companies, and he's a small boutique firm. And he's been able to land these billion-dollar clients competing against these $100 million and billion-dollar firms. So for that to happen, we had to be really, laser focused on how you can help that prospect to become a client. And recently, we're looking at, okay, how can this company now integrate AI into what they're doing? So we've been looking at, getting that voice out of the CEO's head and into his trained chat GPT so that it's like he had his mind blown. He came here to my lake house and we did a VIP day, and he had never used chat GPT before. He was literally having his wife do it on her cell phone. He would be like, can you ask chat GPT this? And she would do it. And when we came here, like, we went in grassroots and like trained his chat GPT on all of his content in his voice. And we were able to have outputs that he was like, in 5 minutes, that would have taken him a week. And so
Mm.
now we're also going down into the organization of his marketing, his sales team, to making sure that his sales team is following up on that. Because when you go from being a commodity to becoming a couture company, the one in the market that people want to work with, your salespeople are still, unless they've been with you forever, are still thinking, oh, let me do a quote. Let me do a quote. Right. And when you say, let me quote you, you're coming in as a commodity versus saying,
Mhm.
hey, listen, we're not going to quote you. We're going to come into your company. We're going to look at what it is that you need help with. We're going to look at where we can add value in your company, and then we'll design something that we think will help you get the result that you want. And so we've been working on that with his sales team to do that instead of let me quote you and just dialing for dollars and emailing for dollars.
That's a interesting way, right, to position yourself. And I think it's hard sometimes to break the norms of industries, right? You know, take it, we'll call it roofing, right? As an example,
Yeah.
roofing may have that systematized way that everybody does it a certain way, and then they're competing within dollars of each other for quoting things like you said. To bring
Yeah.
you in and add a value position is it's so different, right? And it's really an approach that could really help a lot of people. So Go for CO community, check out staceyhylen.com and kind of get some more of that research of how she's been able to implement that. So tell us a little bit about, what you did really to start, expanding. So has it been a service right now for throughout the years that you've been able to do just on your own, or do you also have subsidiaries of yours, or maybe joint ventures that you do in collaborations? What are some of the ways that you have expanded your own business of consulting?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of one-on-one consulting. Like I mentioned, I was vice president of consulting with Tony Robbins, and that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot there. But what I've decided to do is I've created some masterminds because um, I've had some people that I've trained in the hidden profits process and things like that. But I really love, that's my zone of genius, is working with these masterminds. And I have two right now. I have one that's tech founders over $1 million, and they've been going for 8 years, the same people in that mastermind. And then I have another one that's high six, seven figures founders. And that has allowed me to increase my impact because it's more of a leveraged process, that it's not all just one-on-one calls on the calendar or Zooms. um, but it's still allowed people to get the result that they want, because with the mastermind we have the Zoom calls. They have Voxer access, so they can grab their phone and message me anytime they want, and I'll respond to them. So they're not waiting all month to be like, okay, when's the next call? Like that, I need this question answered. And we also do retreats. So those retreats allow the CEOs to step away from their business and actually take 2 days to really think about, like, what is the next evolution? Like, if you think of that spiral, right? Like, a lot of times CEOs were so idea driven that we're like, oh, look at this idea. Look at like all these shiny objects. Like people say, squirrel, squirrel. And instead, we get really focused in those 2 days to make sure you're focused on the right things, right? That you're not just like, oh, this is an opportunity, that's an opportunity. Oh, I need to change to this software. Like we're really discussing what's going to help them take to the next level. And again, in that lifestyle design container, to not sacrifice their family life when they do it.
Hmm. Yeah, you're making me think of a lot of things that make a business run, right? And there's so many hats that at that small level, right? The six figures are still kind of a baby business,
Yeah.
right? Seven figures, I think it's the quote is 7% or so companies in the world in the US, get to seven figures. So you start to become more of a mature business. And you see that, right? You see the change of a seven figure, 2 million to get to 5 million takes a little bit of a stretch from 5 to 10, 10 to 25. There's differences in the things that you're doing. So I love the positioning that you give people a focus, right? That CEO, that entrepreneur, a very laser focused in their proposition of how they're positioning themselves. So what are some of the evolutions, and how did you get to this book, which is really interesting, right? I know there's another book out there. I think it's called Profit First, and some other
Yeah.
variations out there. So I'd love to hear, and the community would love to hear, how you started to kind of position the book as something that you could Was it more of a leave behind? Is it something that you're challenging your retreat to read before you come? What are some of the ways that you thought of that book?
Well, the book came from the last recession. So when I was working with Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins, I they started their business mastery brand together at that point, right? Like the economy crashed and they were having their first live event in Las Vegas. It was a $10,000 event to attend, and it was interesting because I was hearing from the sales team of like how nervous the entrepreneurs were that were like investing $10,000 to attend this event, especially since it was a brand new event. Um, and there was something that happened that Tony was coaching somebody that changed everything for me as a coach and as a business owner. And he was at the front of the room, and this was a very small event. There were probably like 300 people. Tony didn't have a security team. It was very intimate. Um, and so he was at the front of the room coaching this entrepreneur, and this guy said, I've tried everything and nothing works. And like that's something that you hear a lot, right? That people are just like trying all these different tactics and like they haven't stuck with something long enough to make it work.
Hmm.
And so Tony said, well, tell me what you've tried. And like, so the guy told him what he tried. And so Tony said, well, that's like three things. Like, that's not everything. And he said, well, how many times did you try? Because he said, you told me you've tried everything and you've tried three things. And the guy said, well, I tried like, three things and like for three times, like not very long. And so at this point, the audience was kind of nervous, like, oh my gosh, this guy just told Tony. Imagine telling Tony Robbins that you've tried everything and you told him I tried three things three times, right? Tony's going to be like, that is not everything. So,
The wrath is coming.
yeah, yeah. So Tony said, well, have you ever seen somebody that's come to this country with less than you have? Like they didn't have a credit score, they didn't have a credit card, they had no capital, they had no network, they had, they didn't even speak English as well as you speak English, and they have become more successful than you as an entrepreneur. And the guy said, yeah, like you're seeing them all the time in Entrepreneur Magazine, on the Inc., 5,000. And he said, well, what is the difference here is that they did not have more resources than you. They were more resourceful, right? So it's not about the amount of resources you have. It's about you being resourceful. And that like that's a writer downer for everybody that's listening. Like the bells were going off, and that's where when I went back that week, I was having clients, and you're in the banking industry, the credit lines dried up, right? So people were selling stuff, they didn't have the credit lines to pay for the equipment. I mean, it was a mess. And so I said, how can I be more resourceful for my clients as they're going through this recession? And that's where the hidden profits were born, is how could we make more money with the existing resources we had? And so all the things in the book, yes, it's about profits, right? But it's really about boosting the revenue without increasing your marketing expense, which means everything that we do goes directly to bottom line profit. Right. So that's a little different than, some of these other books that are focusing on profits, because this is not an accounting book. This is a revenue boosting book to bottom line increasing your bottom line profit.
I love it. Let's get even a little bit deeper. So, I'm thinking one of the concepts, right, is there's a sale, right, and then there's a longevity to that sale of that client that could stay with you. Are you teaching them, different, add-ons at that point? Is it an initial sale plus a bundle of packages? What's some of the ways that you are teaching them to kind of go deeper in that revenue cycle?
Yeah, so one I'll give you a few examples. We can go into a few of the hidden profits so people can actually go off and implement these. So, um, one of my clients at that point, we did our first call and he told me, I'm really having trouble. There's all these new big box competitors in my industry. They're doing TV ads. I really can't compete. On his intake questionnaire, he told me that his staff was older. They didn't do anything he said. So when we got on the first call, I said, okay, we're going to have to clean house. I remember looking at this questionnaire being like, well, he needs to bring in new employees and we'll, get this going. And he said these people are family members. Like he had uncles that were like 80 years old working for him. And he said, and other people were people in his church. And he said, with all this recession, being from a small town, I cannot like with my heart let these people go. So I said, oh crap, like this is a challenge. So because they weren't doing anything that he asked them to do, we said, what can we do is the simplest thing to get him a result? And so what we did is we incorporated one question. We looked at what was his most popular product. In this case, it was an auto parts store. His most popular product was the stuff to do an oil change, right? So we then trained his staff to say, would you like an air filter with that? He increased his sales 48% in 1 month during the recession. And so with one question, so it was just like everybody was coming in to buy the oil change. He gave his staff some of the education about like, hey, why should they do an air filter if they needed to talk about that? And it was a simple thing, 48% increase in 1 month. Now,
Wow.
on the other side where you're saying like, so that's like you were saying like, do we do packages? Yes, like buyers buy, right? So when you have that buyer with their wallet out, that's the time to say, hey, they're the most excited. They have their credit card, their wallet out. Let's see what else we can do to serve them. Not like, oh, I'm gonna get every dime out of this person. No, we come at it from a place of service. Like, how can we help this person?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you add another product or a service during the sales cycle, it has to match, right? It can't be like you're selling, like you said, oil change, and then all of a sudden you come out with, "Hey, would you like a cookie?" Right? With
Yeah,
that,
or
but
doing some hubcaps.
yeah, something like that, right? So I get it. I definitely feel like businesses kind of miss opportunities, when they have someone engaged. In my commercial banking hat, I always say, hey, look, you came to me for the capital, right? You wanted to buy a building, you wanted to buy some equipment, you wanted to have access to capital for your growth and a line of credit. But, we're about a relationship. Have you thought about your merchant service? Have you thought about your banking services, and how do you use your treasury management to really float your liquidity, all those types of things, right? So it's a conversation, right? And as you get that client talking, those companies can really flourish by, like you said, incredible 48% in 1 month, just tweaking one little thing. So
Yeah.
really awesome stuff. So
I
any
like
other
what you said.
examples?
I like what you said because you became a resource for your client, right? Instead of just being a commodity of like, oh, where can I get capital? No, you're a resource. You're like, hey, John, I'm having a question about this. You're going to connect them with the right people, even if it's not you, right? You're going
Yeah.
to connect them, but you're also going to help them see the things that they can't see for themselves. So another example was a client, what I call the $700,000 mistake in the book.
Mm.
And so I had a client and he came to me and he said he canceled his call, which rarely ever happens because people have made a huge investment in coaching. And they said, I so I got on the next call with him and I said, tell me what happened. He said, well, I had $100,000 sale. And I said, well, this is like a happy dance moment, right? Like $100,000 sale. And he was in commercial printing and he said, it wasn't a happy dance moment. And I said, well, how can $100,000 sale not be a happy dance moment? And he said, well, Stacey, he said, this was a prior client that had been going to our competitor for the last 7 years. So $700,000, like 100,000, 100,000, like going down the drain.
Wow.
And so that really was like, oh my goodness, like that inspired one of my other hidden profits in the book is the come on back strategy. Because once you have a client that likes, knows, and trusts you, they might stop for some reason, right? Like they might not need your product or service right that minute. They might decide to go and try somebody else, right? And that's at the point where, like, say somebody goes to another banker, they might think, oh, I can't go back to John because John's mad at me or John's going to be, ticked off that I cheated on him with another bank. And so what the thing is that knowing that you need to welcome those clients back and let them know that they're welcome into, your world again. And so dentists are really good at this, right? You don't go to the dentist and they're like going to send you the postcard. They're going to call you. They're going to like keep after you. But most businesses are not doing this. And it's a huge, loss because you've already put that money into the marketing to that client, into the sales team to bring on that client. And if you let them go and don't reactivate them, that's a hidden profit right there that you're just letting go down the drain. I had a client that did this. She was taking my hidden profit system class. And she was an implementer. And she said, I want to do this. Now, the funny part was, is this was December and she was in the very worst niche to sell stuff in December. Can you guess what it was?
Uh, ice cream? No.
Well, ice cream, actually, the further north you go, people eat ice cream in the winter.
Oh, really? All right.
It's really weird, but it's close to ice cream. It's weight loss.
Wait, okay.
It's weight
Okay.
loss, right? Because who
It's the
wants to,
holidays. I gotta gain weight.
right? People actually expect between Thanksgiving and New Year's, you're going to eat, right? You're going to
Okay.
go to grandma's, you're going to
That's funny. I
have
never
those
thought of it.
once a year
Yeah.
thing, you're going to have the cocktail, you have parties. And so she was an implementer and she's like, I want to do the come on back strategy. And I said, well, I can't guarantee you it's going to work for weight loss in December because people are very resistant to that. She did it and she increased her sales by 50% and had her best month ever by doing that. And then that continued into January because January is the big revenue month for weight loss programs. And so it even went up another 10,000 in January after that. So you want to give your past clients permission to come back. You want to give them a reason to come back. In this case, she gave them a very good reason to actually take action in December versus waiting till the new year.
I love that. It could be a full chapter, right, of how businesses miss opportunities with past clients. When I sold my business in '09, I got into banking. So I always joke about being an entrepreneur and becoming a banker instead of vice versa. And, one of the things, once I get into leadership, I would always tell bankers and say, hey, look, how many clients have you interacted with, right? And if they were 6 months into the business, let's just say they interacted with, I don't know, 50 clients, right? And I say, well, how many times have you touched that 50 clients again? Oh, no, I don't call them back. They're done. They already got their whatever, right? And I think it's so huge that you bring that up because there's definitely hidden profits in that. And like you said, sometimes it's just that little message, maybe that offer that grabs them again to say, hey, oh, come back to me. And you're so right. Dentists, as far as success, 98.9% of dentists are profitable and they run really good businesses. It's so interesting that you brought that up is that they're one of the only industries that touch you over and over and
Yeah,
over and
yeah,
over, remind you about the cleaning and
yeah.
text you about this, right? All that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's an interesting insight that you just brought out. So
And
so
I
tell me a little bit about the aspect of how you've been able to sustain your own growth, right? Obviously, how'd you call it? Consulting,
consultant.
consultant, all right, consultant. Obviously, as an individual, you personally only have your own amount of time.
Yeah.
Recently, I saw AI certified and all the things that you're talking about. Are you able to duplicate your time through? Are you doing video teaching? Are you doing one to many? Right. Obviously, you're doing the retreats that have become a really staple of your business. What are some of the ways that you duplicate your stuff?
Yeah, so the mastermind is a big one because I have the two masterminds, which is awesome. I also, do videos and things like that. The thing, to be quite frank, like as an entrepreneur, we know it's hard, right? The people sitting out here watching and listening are like, yeah, it's hard. And so one of the things I talk about with my clients is like that those peaks and valleys. It's like a wave, right? And you can't expect to always be on the wave, top of the wave, right? You need to know that there's some slower time. There's times that your energy, like I had my daughter whose back got broken, we moved, I built my lake house, which I'm sitting in right now, which was my dream, which is like, okay, once I did that, I was like, oh, I did my dream. Like, so it's really a combination of like knowing your energy cycles, like really managing your energy. There's a book, The Power of Full Engagement, that I absolutely love. And it talks about like how to manage that. And I always say to my husband and my kids, like, people are paying me for my brain to be on their business. I said, like, I need to guard my brain, which means like I need to be like moving my body. I need to be sleeping. I need to be, feeding my brain the good stuff instead of the crap. And so those are some of the things. And then I myself have also invested in masterminds and training and coaching. And, like you mentioned the AI, like I've been in AI now for 2.5 years. Like when ChatGPT came out, I was on it. And then I got certified as an AI consultant because I said, again, it's like the hidden profits. It's like, how can I help my clients even more? And so the
Mm.
AI was like, they have no idea, right? And people come here, like I did a retreat this week here at the lake house, and the guy was like, his mind was blown. We took his stuff and he said, we were brainstorming all, like you have the flip chart here. We were brainstorming all of his things about his perfect clients, his strategic positioning. He's like, I don't know what we're going to do with it. And then I like popped it into his AI and trained his AI on this new language and strategic positioning. And he was like, that is amazing. Right. So I've been able to use AI to get so much more done in my business and automate things. And now I'm helping my clients do that too.
I don't know if people see this, but like, if I'm on Instagram or some other socials, it's interesting. If you're over 40 and you're using ChatGPT as Google just to search, you're using ChatGPT wrong, right? So those
Yeah.
types of things. And it's been interesting. I pay for the paid version, right? Of
Yep.
Chat and Grok and trying to learn those things. I might have to steal some access from you to as far as the agent side. I think that's one thing
Yeah.
that
That's the,
I'm very interested in
yeah.
and learning.
That's
So, are you
exciting.
doing anything with the agent? Because I think you said one of the client that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
we're putting agents in place for his
Okay,
business to really automate it because he's dealing with billion-dollar companies.
wow,
So we're
okay,
looking at like, okay, how can we make this easier? How can we take some of the load off of his operations? Because we've done this marketing and sales part. Now we're looking at his operations, how to make that easier. Yeah, the agents are going to be a game changer because I think in the past, like I was, looking and developing agents and things on the side, but now it's much more, you know, available to everybody, right? So you're going to have the tool. You don't have to go buy another software, another tool to be able to do this in your business, but it's going to make a huge difference to be. And for people that are listening, they're like, I don't know what agents are, right? Because they're just trying to tell ChatGPT to be Google. Like agents are using AI to actually accomplish tasks. So you can
hmm
actually tell it to do something. So the example that ChatGPT did, OpenAI did in their example was like, it can go and book travel for you. It can go and actually purchase things, like design a t-shirt and then upload it onto the Shopify store and, do all of that for you once you program it how you want it to do it. Yeah, it's a game changer for sure. And I think
I
the
love.
other thing where you said like people are using it as Google is a lot of people are just saying like, oh, do better, right? So they're getting an output in Chat GPT or whatever they're using, and they're like, oh, this isn't good. Like, improve this, make this better, make this more whatever. And they're making it all relying on the prompt,
hmm
which you need to train your AI before you prompt it. So you need to have your voice, your tone, your security, all of that set up before you're like, okay, I want to write a letter to my clients.
Mm. Yeah, because it doesn't know, the framework of how you think and talk. And if you ask it to maybe rewrite something, right, it's not giving it, it may feel, I think, because I've done that, admittedly. I've done it where I've written something out and I'm not necessarily a great writer because I usually write like I speak. My wife always says that to me, so I got to slow down a little bit. And I've used it for that prompt. And it's interesting. I'll feel like it does give it a little bit of a polish to it, but not exactly the way that I would have wanted to share it.
Right,
And I
right.
think people are noticing, those that are in the know, that are still very few, are noticing, oh, that sounds like it might have been like an AI, feedback
Response.
per se.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
So
example, yeah.
it's
And
interesting.
I'm now using it in the sales process. So we're looking at like, okay, we're having a call with a prospect. How are we using that call with the prospect to develop the follow-up plan custom for each particular prospect
Mhm.
versus having a one and done like brochure that you're sending out? Like we can actually customize a brochure like in less than 5 minutes that's for that prospect. And I had recently done a training for a bunch of medical device companies, and these were like the top leaders at medical device companies, and they had their minds blown because they were trying to use it as Google a little bit. They were trying to do the do better prompts, but they didn't have it trained in their strategic positioning. They didn't have it trained in their particular voice. I will give you a quick tip for you and all the listeners. Do you have it on your phone, John?
Yes.
Okay, so talk to it. Talk
Okay.
to it. So instead of trying to type out, like, I want to write a letter to blah, 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 you're going to get much more Johnness on it than if you were like, hey, I have this guy that needs financing for this building. We have this, we have that. Like, here's the things that I see that he should consider. These are the timelines. And please write a thing that sounds, and that's going to be much better than trying to type it in. Plus, it'll save you so much time using the
Interesting.
voice.
I know,
Yeah.
honestly, again, that's a learning lesson in Go for CO community. This is one of the reasons why I love even having this podcast is you learn from such great minds and different ways and different strategies of talking to even now your chat GPT, right? Or your
It's
Grok.
going to save you hours a week to talk to it versus typing
I love it. I love it. Will
and get
do. Will
much
do.
better responses.
I like taking action when I hear a great advice. So
So
love it. So tell me, one of the things that consultants struggle with, right, is keeping business sometimes. And sounds like you've had longevity with your clients. What are some of the ways that you kind of keep the nurturing aspect of that relationship and keep adding value? I mean, it seems like you've kind of mastered that over the years. Any two or three tidbits and why people stay with you so long?
yeah, I think it's interesting because there's a lot of negative press in the coaching community these days about like people that are scammers and crooks and they did one thing one time and then they're selling a coaching service on it. And I think the difference is as I have very deep knowledge, right? We're talking over 20 years of marketing, sales, business experience, and I'm always looking at how I can add value to my client. Right. So, like, I have that client that I said that's been with me for 15 years. I have other clients that have been with me 10, 12, 7 years. That's unheard of in this industry.
Mhm.
And so my mastermind, the one mastermind, people have been in there for 8 years. It was supposed to be a 6 month program. And
Mm.
after that first 6 month session, everybody renewed every single time for the last 8 years. And it's because we look at how we can add value to each other. The other day I was just writing a post on this. I woke up on a Sunday and I had I think it was 64 messages on my WhatsApp channel, which this group likes WhatsApp. My other group, we don't use WhatsApp. But this group, they're tech founders, they love WhatsApp. So one of my founders had a crisis and she put it in there and the rest of the group just like gave value, helped her. Like, we don't usually text on the weekends, right? Because we allow that space for the families, but everybody came to the rescue and like really provided value, and I think that's really important. um I think the other thing is to be able to like laser in on like what are the things that my clients can't see for themselves that I can see for their next level. So for example, one of the women in my other mastermind, she said, "Oh, I'm going to write an ebook." And I said, no, no, there's enough ebooks. You're going to write a book. And so she actually wrote a book, bestseller. Now she's off speaking. She like, so I'm not afraid to say the hard stuff of like letting you coast and letting you play small. I really look at the potential within my clients, what they want, and help see the vision for where they want to go and help them reach it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And these groups that you talked about, are they paid groups or are they kind of peer groups, right?
No,
That kind
they're
of,
paid groups. Yeah.
okay, interesting, right? And like you said, when you get, 4, 5, 20, 30, 100 people, let's say, I don't know what the size is of your groups, but you get all these people that have an invested interest in helping each other and feel that community sense, right? Really interesting to on a weekend, as you said, you've kind of coached them to be cognizant of their time with their family, but they happen to see that message, someone in need, someone of their peers in
Yeah.
need, and they all responded, and really cool. What was the result of that feedback that
Well,
everybody gave?
first of all, I think it took the stress off of the person because,
Okay,
they were feeling really alone with it. And it was
yeah,
something that was, um, I don't want to give any details that'll identify
sure,
them, but it was something that could have really hurt her business. And so she came out of there with a plan and she was like on it, right? So she was taking action to do the things that we said and really, solve the problem.
that's awesome, awesome. Well, look, I really appreciate your knowledge and the things that you've been able to share. I know that the book And the book is out right now, right?
No, it's coming
Oh,
out. It's coming out. It's called Hidden Profits, More Clients and Cash. You can go to hiddenprofitbook.com and get on the waiting list because I'm going to have lots of goodies for the people for the pre-launch. So go there, get on the list. So when it launches, you'll get all the goodies. But
nice.
yeah, I'm really excited to get it out in the world because I know that each chapter has strategies that you can actually take to get those bottom line profits, and they're designed to do it for free with very quickly and without a big team to implement. So anybody can put this in their business, whether they have a business that's, at 100,000 or they have a business that's 100 million. These things are going to be things that they can implement.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, business is still human beings, right? Doing the work. Obviously, we're starting to bring in the AI component, and companies are realizing there's areas that it could improve vastly having these components, but it's still a human being, right? You still
Yeah.
need to, teach someone and identify opportunities and look where they may not be looking to coach them the right way. So super excited about that. The way that we end our interviews are typically as CEO, right? So part of Go for CEO is client experience. Engagement is the E word, right? How you engage with your clients, how you engage with your employees, if you have those, or strategic partners that you have work with. And then O is operational excellence. And you've kind of touched on a little bit of those in each one of our topics that we've talked today. So client experience, maybe like a 60-second value proposition. What is it that they experience truly coming to Stacey Hylen and her Coachescent program? So
Yeah. So when my clients come to me, I have their best in mind, right? So I'm seeing the best in them, I'm seeing what's possible for them, and I'm also helping them in their zone of genius, right? So instead of feeling like forcing, it feels like flow because we're not trying to like fit them into like what everybody else is doing. We're designing it around them and what their goals are and their zone of genius.
awesome, awesome. And then engagement. I mean, you talked a little bit of, I think from a service perspective and what you do in the coaching consulting side, the mastermind is such a cool thing and it's very engaging. Are there any other little things that you're doing? Are you a birthday card writer? Do you send gifts, once a quarter? What are some ways that you engage with clients, maybe with other coaches that you partner with? What are some ways that becomes something that's prevalent?
Yeah, it's funny because I would never have been a cheerleader in school because I'm not that coordinated, but I am a cheerleader.
Okay.
So I celebrate my clients. I celebrate their wins. I celebrate them like every week we celebrate. And I think the other thing is like I'm going to help them um, amplify their reach. So I'll share their things on social media so that they're
Mm.
getting more visibility. I'm also sending them things that I'm like, okay, this would be perfect for you. So it's not like even if it's outside of the coaching time, I'm always looking at like how can I add value. One of the biggest things that people love is if I see an opportunity to be on a podcast, to be in the media. Like I see a lot of media requests come in that they're like, "Oh, I need somebody for this on this topic." I will send them that and say, "Hey, connect with this person, get in the Boston Globe, whatever it is." Or there's a speaking engagement that I think you would be perfect with. So I really am always sharing opportunities with them that they don't see.
I love that. That's a different way to look at engagement, right? Is you being so proactive that you're finding opportunities that doesn't even mean that you're getting paid for it. You're just adding value and adding value. I love it.
And then
So
they don't have to resist the brownies, right? Like,
I love it. So the last one's operational excellence. I know that we didn't touch on everything. You gave a really great insight on how you're using AI and really training the agent mindset of it and the voice and to talk to your AI. Don't
yes.
just prompt it, ladies and gentlemen. All right. But any other tools that you're using? Are you using Monday? Are you using some other great CRM? What are some tools that you're using in your operations day to
Yeah,
day?
I think that so I'm using Go High Level, which has a CRM and lots of back end capabilities that are in it. Um, if people want to hear about that, they can message me. I'm using ClickUp with my team. And I'm also using Slack with my team. And I think the other thing is not just like I am not an operations person, I am more of an idea person And so I surround myself with my team that they're like dotting the I's and crossing the T's for me as I move as fast as I move. So having a good team that is, um, operations focused versus, relying on yourself if that's not your skill set.
So I don't usually do this, but I'd love to hit on this because I think it's important for the consultants and coach all consultants, right? You said out there, you just mentioned a team. And I think a lot of times in the consulting coaching world, everybody's taking it on kind of their own, right? And they're doing everything. So they're facing the, employee to self-employed dilemma being a coach because they're doing everything. So
Yeah.
you just talked about a team. Why don't we just diverse a little bit there? What did you do to bring on teams? And are you using independent contractors? Are you using strategic partnerships? What are the ways that you built your team?
Yeah, so and this has been a trial and error process for sure. But I'm using independent contractors and I'm looking at, like I said, the areas where I am not operationally excellent in to bring in people that have the strengths in that area. Because I think a lot of times people hire people that they like, right? And
Yeah.
I've done this a bunch of times. I've made that mistake. And it's because like, oh, we have great energy together. Like but no, I don't need somebody like that. I have me that does that. I need somebody that's like, okay, Stacey, you need to do this. I see this on your webpage that needs to be fixed. I see this on your intake thing that is not working, right? Like I need somebody with the eyes for me on the things that I don't see. So that's really important.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for that last nugget there. Let's tell everybody how to get a hold of you. What are some of the best ways to really interact? Are you taking clients right now to keep on consulting in the future here, and all those types of things?
Yeah, so I have a very limited availability right now, especially because of the AI. I'm doing the AI accelerator days where we're training your AI, we're incorporating the hidden profits. So we're looking at everything that we can do to help you increase your revenue and your bottom line profits in one day. So those things have been flying off the shelves, and I'm actually going to be raising the prices because people are just buying them left and right. Um, I do have room in my mastermind, so optimizemastermind.co. And I'm Stacey Hylen everywhere on the internet. I'm the only Stacey Hylen in the world. It's Hylen, help you leverage everything now. And for the book, go to hiddenprofitbook.com to get on the early bird list.
Say that acronym again. I love that.
Help you leverage everything now. I thought of that while I was on motorcycle one day. I was like, I need a way that people can spell my name because they usually think it's Highland, like I'm Scottish, but I'm Swedish.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Well, it reminds me of system, right? Save yourself time, energy, and money, right?
Yes.
So I love it. I love it. Well, John the Bomb, Building Others Beans Business. I'm coming out with the book very shortly. Should be the beginning of August. I need to get probably a pre-launch and tighten up my skills on that side of things. But super exciting to have you on, Stacey. Really appreciate you sharing with the Go for CEO community, and check her out. And by the way, subscribe to the channel, become someone
Yes.
that is building the Go for CEO community. You'll also see Stacey on LinkedIn, on my X, on Instagram. Now we have our own Instagram page with Go for CEO community, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts. So excited to have her sprayed all over the internet, and the great
Woo.
nuggets that you'll be on. So thank you so much for coming
Thank you
on,
so
Stacey.
much. Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody.